Joining us is Felice Friedson and Mohammad Al Kassim. Felice is president and CEO of the Media Line news agency, and Mohammad is the Media Line's Middle East bureau chief. Felice, let's start with you. This General Aleksandr Dvornikov, he's known as the butcher of Syria. I've seen him called the worst of the worst. Who is this guy?
Well, you said it. Many view him as a brutal commander, a strategist that President Putin was able to utilize during the Syrian civil war. He helped President Assad take over Syria at that time. He was honored for it, but his tactics are pretty fierce. He likes to instill fear in people. He has a way of coming in and really commanding others, whether it's militias that he's brought in or taking over civilians in a bloody bath way. This is the kind of person that he's known to be. But looking back at what happened in Syria, I think it's important to note, you were talking about some very sophisticated use of military aid that they had in order to kind of snuff in the civilians. So they're going to wait it out and they're going to see how can we handle this.
And before we get to present day, I actually want to go back even a little bit further. Apparently he has a fondness for targeting civilians. Sky News was reporting all the way back in the 90s, Russia attacking Chechnya. He reportedly was telling his soldiers, you know what, fire on the civilians, bring them to heel. Are there any limits with him?
I don't think so. And we look at what's happened in some of the cities like Mariupol. We've looked at rape. We've looked at issues of displaying bodies. We've looked at really, as I said, just waiting it out and really putting the people in a situation where they have no way of getting out, no access to food, and of course, the horrific ways that they're being killed as well. So the answer is no.
Mohammad, you've just come back from being on the ground in Ukraine after decades of established brutality, no limits. What does this tell us about what's about to hit eastern Ukraine?
Well, I think they're preparing for the worst right now. Two examples that we can refer to. Grozny is the first one in Chechnya, and also Aleppo in Syria. And if it wasn't for this general and his tactics of going in and implement a certain tactic where they encircle any city or town or territory that gives the Russian army or any army that Russia is supporting, basically encircling these territories, imposing harsh embargo and blockade on them, and also indiscriminate bombardment and shelling of these territories, towns, villages. And we've seen even before he officially took over, I think the plan was similar for Russia in Ukraine as to what it did in Grozny and Aleppo in the past few years. It was successful for them. They have achieved what they wanted to achieve, which is take over. And he was known when he was in Grozny, when his people, his soldiers went in, he basically told them to shoot at anything that moves. And that worked in Grozny. They were able to take over Chechnya's capital. And also it worked in Aleppo, despite the fierce battle that took place at the time there. And when I toured and entered some of the towns and villages and areas in Ukraine, I saw similar scenes to what we've seen in the past, especially in Syria in the last few years, in Bordyanka, in Bucha, in Irpin. We've seen similar aftermath of the battles that took place there. And even though the Russian military have withdrawn from that area, but they left behind total devastation.
Those things you're describing, Mohammad, kids are killed routinely in Ukraine. Dogs shot in the street. Pregnant women are targeted in the hospitals where they're giving birth to babies. And hearing now this guy is taking the reins in the east, is it conceivable that it could get even worse?
Yes, it will get worse. And I think we are approaching very critical few weeks coming up to May 9th, which is for Russia is an important date. The May 9th is Victory Day for Russia. It's the day that they celebrate defeating the Nazis in Germany. And this is the date that President Putin is eyeing. He cannot reach that date without declaring some sort of victory to his people. Otherwise, this whole invasion of Ukraine would be useless for him. So what we're going to, and this is where timing of appointing this general to take over just within the last week is extremely important. Now we're going to see two areas where we will be seeing very, very fierce battle, fierce fighting take place in Mariupol, which, by the way, it pretty much resembles Aleppo at this time, almost 80% according to the mayor and people there, and speaking to colleagues who are still there or have been able to enter and leave, that it's basically what Aleppo looked like after it was overtaken by the Syrian army with the assist of the Russian military as well as Hezbollah and other backers. And I think the other place is Kharkiv in the east. And those two areas, those two towns or cities are extremely critical to Moscow. And President Putin will not accept anything less than having these two cities fall in his military's hands before May 9th. And this is why the appointment of this general was critical at this time. They are basically redeploying and massing troops and bringing in weapons and military hardware. So we will be seeing in the next few weeks a spike in military activities by the Russians in these areas.
Felice, talk to me about that timeline then, because the way I've heard it described, which makes sense, is they've come in from the north and the south. They're trying to do this pincer, and they want to smash it. They want to control this entire eastern region. If we know May 9th is a really important day, almost one of the most important national holidays in Russia, is the ferocity of these attacks going to be stepped up? Is the frequency, what are we looking at?
I think not only are we looking at, as according to Mohammad also predicted, I think that there's this consensus that this is the case. A lot of it is going to really be looked upon how things flow, whether armament is going to come in, whether they're going to see that they're going to continue to get intelligence help from the West. If all those things come together, then maybe Ukraine and President Zelensky stand a chance. But if you're dealing with someone with the kind of brutal tactics that we've seen in Syria that this general has, not so sure that the Ukrainians will survive. It's a very difficult time for everyone to be observing. And really, we have to look at the timeline day by day of how things are unfolding before our eyes right now.
Felice Friedson and Mohammad Al Kassim, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.